Good morning, everybody. This is Mike Fiducia with the According Company. Thanks for joining us this morning for our estimating webinar, Handling Revisions in Sage Estimating. So we have Mark Reich, who's our Senior Field Sales Engineer with Sage. He's going to be driving our presentation today. But real quick, we're just going to go over some points that we're going to talk about today, talk about things we have coming up in the future, and then we'll dive right into the software. So just want to give you guys a heads up. Next week, we have 2 more webinars on Tuesday at 9:30 Eastern Time. We have an estimating on progressive estimating, which is cool with, more and more bids are going conceptual, and with design build, more of our clients are doing progressive estimating, and we could show you how to handle that in Sage Estimating. And then also on Thursday, we have a webinar on how you can leverage models. I think it's one of the most underutilized features in Sage Estimating. So we're going to cover that and show you how you can use models to increase your estimating efficiency in design building, conceptual estimating, and really gain some value out of your current investment. And then we will also be releasing a schedule for our 2019 webinars over the next couple weeks. So I'll have a lot more coming and a lot more topics to discuss. So today, here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to show you how to handle changes accurately and efficiently in Sage Estimating. We all know that revisions and changes to plans are inevitable, and what you start with is never what you wind up with. And estimating is a constantly evolving process. So some of the things that we see with our clients, there's always drawing and spec changes. You have to make productivity changes based on your labor force. And then you have to make competitive adjustments, right? Especially in this market, you're constantly having to change your prices so you can win that bid and keep your guys working. So what we're going to do is show you how to make revisions with control. And what we mean by that is using Sage Estimating and the audit trail feature that is within the software, so you can track all of those changes that you have made. And then also, we're going to show you how you track those changes and can prove those changes with accounting. So there are no hiccups or gray areas from your estimate to your budget. And just a housekeeping detail, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A feature. So feel free to type any questions and we will cover them by the end of the presentation. We may cover them during, or we'll get to them at the end, but your questions will be answered. So please ask all the questions you have. Oh, sorry. And with that, I'm going to change it over to Mark Reich, who again is our Sage's Senior Field Sales Engineer for Sage Estimating and all of their estimating products. He's been with Sage Estimating since it was Timberline for years, so one of the foremost leading experts on Sage Estimating. So we're leaving it in good hands. And Mark, with that, I'm going to give the presentation to you and jump right in. Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I was on mute. Sorry. So you can see my screen okay with the parking lot? Okay, well, thank you guys for taking time this morning to take a look at this. We're going to walk through a number of things in the product to where we're going to make changes where changes are applicable. As Michael said, changes are inevitable. Things change. You get a set of specs and plans and you start estimating, and it evolves. Whether you're doing competitive bidding, design build, negotiated work, there's always some changes that people throw something in the pool, and it changes. So we're going to walk through some of those things and how you can easily do that and keep track of those, so you don't have to worry about doing a log to figure these changes, and we'll do a variety of things. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the takeoff tool. If you haven't gone to our webinar on takeoff, you'll see those coming up, and you can definitely come and see that. That's the next generation of estimating as far as doing takeoff and then creating your estimate. I'm going to do it just because it creates an estimate real fast, so I won't go much into this, although we'll come back and make some changes so we can show you those types of changes. So for the sake of speed here, I'm just going to go ahead and create a bridge and create an estimate here from a set of drawings that I've done a takeoff on. And I'm going to go ahead and just call this the La Quinta Hotel. And I'll create a new estimate here. And we can do this without even creating, and I'm going to store this here. And I'm going to call this the same thing for lack of better terms. And I'll just call it live. So we're going to create an estimate real quickly here with this. I'm not going to go into explaining how we do this. That's going to be in another webinar. But so I'm just going to go straight to automatic mode, just to understand that when we do takeoffs, we can actually map them to our database of items and assemblies. And I've already done that. And you only do that once. The very first time you ever use the product, you map them. And then from then on, you do takeoff, and then you'll just do what I'm about to do, which is automatic mode. And we'll find all those items and complete all of the items and assemblies for you because you mapped them the very first time. It's a very big enhancement to your productivity, accuracy, and all the audit, as you'll see, we'll do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just send all these to the estimate to create an estimate. All the pages that we've done takeoffs on here are all being filled out with all of my items from each takeoff, and then they'll be transferred over into my estimate. Once I'm done with my estimate, you'll see there will be a dynamic link with every item that we've taken off in this drawing on this project and every line item in my estimate. That'll come in handy when we need to make some changes. So I can actually hide everything that I've sent over, and when I do that, everything will disappear that's been sent over. I can show what I've got, but I can also hide them to see that they've come over. So we'll just go ahead and hide those. I'm going to go over to close this off because I've accomplished what I wanted to do. We've taken everything from takeoff and done it and sent it to the estimate. So here is this La Quinta Hotel Live, which was just created from our takeoff. You'll notice here we have a tab down here called Group Face, so we're sorting it in CSI format. In this case here, we've got a lot of our slabs, our fine grade, all the areas that we're dealing with in our estimate. These are all because I've got individual slabs. If I want to, we can combine these. So now I've got a consolidated list. Here's all my site work. There's my concrete, so forth. We can actually collapse this down to the CSI level here, and we can actually, let me get this a little wider here so we can see it. We can see at our group level, we can actually see the totals that we have for labor, material, and so forth on this. Let's go ahead and expand this all out, and let's get rid of the combined items. And let's start off with some things that we want to be able to change. You know, a lot of people will do some what-if scenarios, and in this case here, we've got a particular slab, fine grade of this slab. We've got each one individual. Here what we have is productivity. So we've got productivity, our square foot per hour, or our cost per square foot, whichever you guys prefer. We can do it both ways. You'll see how dynamic this is. Here's the total number of hours for this particular slab. It's a large slab, obviously. There is my cost per hour, and here's my total cost. I have the same thing for other items up here, for my footings and so forth. You can see I've got all of these. Now, one of the things that you can do here, one of the things that you will revise possibly, is either my production rate. So you might say, well, you know, this is, we can do this a little bit faster, so we can actually do 1.15 square feet an hour. And so I'm just going to change that. Well, when I change that, it also asks me, do you want to change all of these? So here's a nice feature where if I want to change one, I can say, yes, let's change them all. And you'll notice that everything down here changed. Or if I said no, it would have only changed this. So that's quite an impressive what-if feature. And you'll notice here, it didn't change how much I did. It only changed my productivity, but it changed my unit price, because my unit price is calculated off of my square foot and my price per hour. It didn't change how much per hour I paid either. but it gave me a new unit price. So if I change my productivity, it's going to be a different unit price. If I don't know what my productivity is, and you say, we're going to be competitive and we're going to do this at $24 a square foot, here I don't have these tied together, so I'm only changing one. If I wanted to, I could change all of these together. So if I wanted to change all of them, I could actually highlight them all the way down to there, right click, hit fill down, and now I've changed them all to the same thing. So there's a variety of ways we can make changes here. You'll notice though that I changed this. It did not change the amount that we did. It did change the productivity, because if you're going to do it for this square footage and you're still paying the same price, it's going to back calculate this. If I want to, I can come over here and even say, well, I have no idea what the unit price is. I don't know what my production rate is, but I do know I'm bidding off of hours and how much time it's going to take, and I think it's going to take us 1,125 hours to do this. So you could actually estimate by time, and you'll notice that it changed my production rate again, changed my my production rate, my unit price, but not how much I paid or how much I did. Every one of these is just simple math that calculates, and that's already built in the system, where it will back calculate into making X and Y true. So I've just changed 3 different things on my spreadsheet, and I instantly get the results of this, which is also different than most systems. Most of the time you'll change something, then you have to go back to the summary sheet and see the change. We do everything live on the spreadsheet. The last change I might want to do here while we're in this particular process here is, I have no idea how long it's going to take. Maybe this is a new item we've never done before. I don't know what the, I'm still paying 23 bucks an hour, but I don't know what this is, what those are. But I do know that we're going to budget a flat number. We're going to put in a lump sum number of $22,000. Well, it just put this in red as an identifier, and this is in your setup, that anytime I plug a number that is not generated by the estimating system, that is plugged in by the user, it will show me that on the screen. So visually, I get to see the change that's been made. It will also back calculate and say, if you're going to do it for this price, then here's your hours going to take, here's your unit price, here's your productivity for that same square footage, and I'm not changing how much you pay. So you can see that I have all of this flexibility on my labor. So those are some changes that you can make here also. Let's say we want to take a look at our estimate a little differently. We've got this here. When we did this, I'm going to go look at my sequences, and we have a number of ways we can filter our estimate. Because in takeoff, as we can do the same in estimating, if we did takeoff directly in estimating, we can actually use WBS codes and start setting things up differently. So I'm going to turn all these tabs on, and instantly down here, I have all these different ways to look at my estimate. So I want to look at the same estimate based on assemblies. So here are all my assemblies, which are systems. So those foundations we did, here's for one foundation, here's for another one, and it gives me my cubic yards, and then it gives me all the item breakdown for that assembly. What's nice about this assembly here, these are all taken off over in the takeoff tool, and I haven't done any takeoff in here. So if I right click on this, I can also see what we call an audit. So I can review this assembly, and what it will do is it'll raise an audit here, and it'll say, okay, here's the time that you took that off, here's the information that you took off in that assembly, and here's the information that we calculated, and then here is your price right here. Now, if we right click on this, I can see my complete audit with that same information with the date stamp on it, and then any notes that I put on when I did a takeoff will show up right here, and if I want to, we can actually add notes that will go back into this. But let's say I don't want to change it right here, right yet. I'm not sure I want to change it to see the effects of it, but let's say we do want to change it, or better yet, we actually, on this particular slab, received a notice that this is an equipment slab, for example, and they're going to change the depth of the sand and gravel and make it a thicker slab, and maybe change the type of reinforcement on it. So how do I go about doing that? Well, I don't want to go through and have to do that with each one of these and calculate and substitute items. I can do that. But with the takeoff tool, it's much easier. You'll notice that each of these quantities here have a little blue caret here, and that tells me that these are attached to items in my takeoff. So I want to go back to the same slab, and if I right-click on this, I can drill down, and it will close my estimate. It'll open up bridge, and it will actually open up and show me that this is the footing foundation that we have here. I guess it wasn't a slab, it was a footing. And it shows me all of my input here. Now, this information here, it's highlighted. So this particular footing is dynamically linked to the estimate, and I've got some changes to it. So I come over here and I see that the footing width is 6 feet, the concrete depth is 12 inches, and there's 3 steps in it. Well, they're going to eliminate 1 step, so we're just going to go to 2 steps, and we're going to change the concrete depth to 10 inches. So I'm going to change some things there that we've got on that. So once I've made those changes, we'll accept that. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go ahead and show all these other slabs, and I'm going to say there was an equipment slab that we have while we're here. I remember there was an equipment slab right here, which ends up being a change that I want to do there also. So let's say that we're changing this equipment slab to be 4 inches of sand, 5 inches of gravel, and we're going to go to 12 inches thick here on this. In fact, let's say they want to expand this slab, and they're going to expand it to a different size. So we change it here also. So I made some changes on this slab and we made some changes on that footing. What I can do here is I can actually refresh this, and it'll go and say, these are the 2 areas that we made changes. I could go into the other parts of the estimate and make changes, but here's some changes. So here's the footing that we did. There's the 2 things that we changed. If I want to accept those changes, I can actually click that, accept those. I can double click this and I can actually note this change and say, changed as per addenda number 1. And if I wanted to, I could actually go in and put a note on this thing and say, changed by Mark. I don't need to worry about the date because I'll automatically add that to my audit. And I've got that changed. Let's go ahead and send it to the estimate. So that change is done. Here's the other change. Now, if I didn't want to see all the other ones that haven't changed, I could simply click this and it would just show me my changed ones. So let's go ahead and expand that, open that change up. And here we can see the changes that were made. You can see the size changed. All the changes automatically happened here. And then I input the other changes. So we're going to go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to accept those changes. And this was as per addenda number 2. And we'll send that over and we're going to go back to the estimate. So we'll go ahead and open up that estimate, and the first thing we're going to see here is, let's open this up here so we can actually see. Here's the change that we made on the foundation one, and here's my new price. Now if I right click on this, I can go to a review assembly, and you can see my audit trail has several passes here. If I right click and I view my audit trail, you can see there's the first pass, the second pass it backed it all out, and then it redid it based on my new answers. In this case here, we just did the change, and then we can see the notes that were added here. This then becomes my new price that's been calculated. So that's how I did it through the takeoff. Now, if I want to do it through the e-takeoff tool, if I want to do it right here and add another change on this, I could actually come back here and say, you know, I was wrong. This is supposed to be a 14 inches. So I go to 14. That's a pretty deep footing. And I make that changes, and this was actually supposed to be 4 instead of 2. And I do that. What I can do is I can replace that because I made a mistake. I can replace that here with this button, replace, and you'll see that it's adjusted my estimate again, revised my total, and you'll notice it added 2 more audits here. So if I actually right-click and hit view the audit side by side, you'll see here the first time, then we backed it out, and here's the changes for the first change. Then we back that out, and here's the ones for the second change. So you can see we went from 12 to 10 to 14 inches on this, and we went from 3 to 2 to 4 steps. So it keeps track of all of my audits here. Now, if I want to go ahead and note that, maybe Tom did this for me, so I can actually then see what that is. Now I've made changes on that, and we've made those changes on the assembly level. And the same thing happens for that other one that we were down here. Let's just find it easily by going to collapse. And we can see that this was the other change that we made here for the slab. So that's another way of making changes here. Now, let's take a look, and let's say that, this is a 3-story building, so let's go ahead and look at the location by assemblies. So, or maybe we'll just do a location by our CSI. And so here we have our foundation items and our elevation items. We have floors, so forth, already on here. We can collapse this so we can actually break this down. So we have all of the different areas in our estimate. We've just sorted it by the different areas in our estimate of types of areas and so forth that we want to actually take this off. Or I can actually do it by the floor. That's what we were going to do here. Let's do it by the floor. So let's collapse these. So we got floor 1, 2, non-floor, and the non-floor here. What I can do is we can make changes by floor if we wanted to. So let's say, for example, productivity on the 3rd floor is going to be up a little bit more than on the 2nd floor. Let me collapse this so I can just see all the floor here. So what I can do is I can go over to my labor costs here, and I can highlight these 3 areas on that floor if I want to, right-click, and we have an adjust column. And in that adjust column, what it allows me to do is I can actually adjust these numbers by a certain way. I can either do it by a percentage, multiplier, divide. I can replace it completely, or I can spread some dollars on it. Let's say that this is going to cost us 3% more on the 3rd floor because we've got a stock item. So I'm going to mark it up 3% on the 1st floor. Now, we had put in a lump sum number, and I don't remember if that was on the 3rd floor or not, but we have a rule here where you can actually say, keep that number. In other words, skip it or prompt for it or go ahead and change it. I'm going to go ahead and keep the number so it won't change that. And I'll hit OK, and it's going to go through and it's going to adjust just the labor costs right now for that 1st floor. Let's expand this out here, and you'll see here in that column for the floor 1, all the items that have been changed have a little red caret next to them. And if I hover over to the red caret, you'll see that they were changed. The original number was $110 on this one. Now it's $114. This one was $200. Now it's $207. So you can see that it went up 3% just for the 1st floor. Because if I go down here past the 1st floor, let me scroll down here to the bottom here. These are non-1st floor items I didn't change from here on down. So actually, there, we get into the 2nd floor. None of these changes are only applied to the 1st floor. So I can selectively use these adjust columns by a whole group, by a sorting, or by individual items, or whatever I want to go with here. So there's another way of adjusting that, but also seeing what my original was. Now, for example, if I want to, I can come back here and I can say, I was just testing it. I'm not sure if we're going to do that. So I'll go back and highlight the entire column, And we have that forgiveness button here, which we can undo the adjustments here. So we'll now undo the adjustments, and now they're all back to normal. You'll notice that nothing's got a cost or a little red tag on it. It's all back to normal. So that's something that you can do also. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually go over here and copy this estimate. So this is maybe my first estimate before I made any changes on it. I want to copy this, and I want to call it Rev 1 for changes. And I want to keep track of these different changes. So I'm going to go ahead and close the estimate so I can copy that. It'll copy it now. And I'll have an exact copy of that estimate. And this is very powerful. So here is the Rev 1 changes here. Let me go ahead and open up the original one here. So let's go ahead back and open up the original estimate here live, because we've got the Rev 1. So now I've got these two estimates here side by side. So if I bring this down, if I just grab that live one down, I can put them side by side here, and you can see I can now see them side by side. So if I wanted to play what if here on these changes here, we can make the changes that we want over here and see what they are compared to over here. So we can see these side by side if we want to make changes. So that's a very powerful way to deal with things too. So when I get to the bottom line, I can see that over here, this is the total for my estimate over here, and over here, this is the total, and they happen to both be the same. But let's say this is our original estimate here, or our Rev 1 estimate that we're making changes to, and we get to the end and we need to come up with a number that is going to be the final number we're going to go with. And here's, before I made any changes, this will be the one that represents our final one. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to information here, and I'm going to add something to this project. And I'm going to go ahead and tell it that it's 20,000 square feet or 200,000 square feet in size. And that will actually, that's the project information. That will actually give me a square foot price here. So there's my total. Here are my markups that we have. Here is my square foot price. So a lot of times when people, this is an ultimate change, you get to the end, especially if you're competitive bidding, and I want to come up with a number, and you've come up with a process to get to this number, and you go, you know, I just don't feel comfortable about that number. I want to actually adjust that. Or the boss walks in and says, I don't think we're going to get it. We need this job. So let's come up with, let's do it for $49,950. One more. Well, then that means that we've got to make up $39,000 variance, or it's $24.95, $24.97 a square foot. Or he comes over here and says, you know, be competitive. $25 a square foot is a little high. We need to be at $23.50 to be competitive. So he does that, and I got to make up $334. So here's my variance down below I've got to make up. We can use that, and we're in this estimate here that's highlighted. So we could actually come over here in this estimate and make some changes on some of these columns, just like we did the adjust columns. But if I want to, we could just right-click on this, and I can say, let's go ahead and spread that variance over the entire job evenly. Or I could assign different areas I want to do it. So for the sake of time, I'll just do the entire job. You could take time and just highlight the ones you want to spread them on and spread it over gradually. But I can go ahead and say, let's spread it over the entire job evenly. It's going to take that full amount there and spread it. And I'm going to say, okay. And now I've accomplished this goal. I'm within $5 of this. So let's go ahead and turn that off. We'll clear variance. So there's our bid. Everything over here has been adjusted. On this side, you can see that I've got a difference here because we've adjusted this, we've buried it. Here's my original. These are all my new numbers, so I can compare them side by side. And notice that it actually kept track of each of these too. It said by spreading that, it told me what percentage of each one and what the original is. So I've got a comparison now between my regular estimate, my live estimate that we did, and the Rev 1 that we did that we're going to go and use as our final estimate. The nice thing about this too, because I get control here, is we can actually go to I can see this on the screen, but we can go to our reports and we can do a comparison just like this at any level. You know, if we wanted to, we could actually put both of these on assemblies, and we'd see the assembly differences. You won't see them at the top here because there's differences there, but we could go to any level and see those. We also could go over here. Oops, wrong one here. We could go over and take a look by estimator, because we actually, in takeoff, and let's go ahead and collapse all these so that these are the same here. And I can take a look at each estimator here, and we can look at Judd Yule's, and we can see we've got the same quantities, but we've got different dollar amounts because it's the two different ones. So we can sort this either way. The important thing here is I can actually print out a report that gives me a comparison of up to 10 estimates. So I can make the copy of this one, make a copy of this and call it Rev 2, make another copy. And that'll be in our progressive estimating webinar that you'll see coming up in January. We'll go into a lot more detail on that. But I also can get a variance. Show me the variance between these two at any level, and go at the item level if I want to, and see a variance at every line item here, what the difference is. Or I can just go up a level, or at the general level. You have all that capability to get the report. So you can get the information out and maintain that accuracy at any time. More importantly though, if I sort this by my job costs, and this is actually going to be how I send this over to accounting, all my cost codes here with my total for labor, material, and so forth, these are going over as my budgets over in accounting. This is my original estimate without any changes. This one over here, let's go by job cost over here also, and let's collapse this one here. So I'm looking apples for apples. It's different. So how else would I be able to transfer this over to accounting and have it true up to what I actually submitted? Common problem. This is the one that I made the changes to, even though I submitted it at this dollar amount. These are the numbers that don't reflect the number that I actually presented, but I give this to accounting and they come up with the difference and say, wow, we've got $313,000 difference between the number you committed and what numbers we have coming into accounting. How do we reconcile that? Well, that gets to be difficult and puts a strain on the relationship between you and your accounting department, because it's a real nightmare for them. Whereas here, you can show and say, give them this report and say, this is the original. Here is the number we went with where we made the changes, and here's the revision of those. So these will actually reconcile and support the number we submitted. So here is what you can give to your accounting department. So you can see very easily how you can do some control. We've touched on a few of the things. There's a lot of other areas that we can cover here. And for sake of making this look way too much, and I hope I haven't done that already, to give you an idea, I wanted to show you the flexibility that we have that no other system on the market has at the level that we have. And as you noticed, every time we made a change, we could see the results, and I always have that forgiveness key. We have the undo key here, or the undo key for some of the features. So if you do them and you didn't make a copy of it, you can go back and make a copy and make all the changes and never hurt your original if you want to. So you have total control over that. Your audit is completely controlled. All of that is done for you. So now you can be rest at peace to see I've got numbers that I don't have to worry about thinking, well, when did I make that change, or who made that change, or whatever. It's all right here in front of you. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Michael. And hopefully you saw the flexibility of us being able to make revision changes or changes to your estimate in a lot of different ways. If you have questions, make sure you put them in that question and answer that question section on your screen, and we'll go ahead and answer some questions. If need be, I can come back here and show you what that's, how that would work if you have a question. So I'm going to send it back to you, Mike. So Michael, if you want to just change it to your screen and then share your screen, and we'll go do questions.
Yes, great. Thank you so much, Mark. Awesome presentation. Hope everybody got some value out of it. Don't have any questions at this point. How do we add change orders? Mark, you want to take that one?
Sure. Change orders can be a number of things. Usually a change order, I would add items. They can come in a number of varieties. For example, a change order could be something that's changed in the spec, or where it's changed, where we actually did the change over in the drawing, and I could call that a change order. Or I could actually create a new group of items and call it a change order, and separate the rest of them into regular items. So let me see, what would be the best way to do this? There's a variety of ways we can do that. Sometimes I can do a change order as a separate estimate too, just so you know. A lot of times I may want to keep that separate, and then I want to merge it into my other estimate. So if you wanted to, let's do this. Let's go to File.
Would you like me to change the present?
Yeah, why don't you present it back to me, and I'll walk through a couple different ways to do this. We've probably got 6 or 7 different ways, and I'll show you one way to do this. Make sure I've got the right screen here. Okay. So what I'm going to do in one way to do this is I'm going to go ahead and turn off this estimate here, and I'm going to go copy this estimate again, or I'm just going to create a new estimate. And so I'm going to create a new one here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it change order number 1. So I've created a new estimate. It's a new one that's got nothing in it, and we've got a change order. But let's say one thing is it changed something that was already done, and I had to make some changes to it. So let's go back and look at assemblies. And let's say that we had a change order. Let me see. I want to make sure this is good. So let's come down here. And we had a change order in the interior studs here. So what I can do is, let me bring this back down here. So I've got the change order here. If we have a change order in interior studs, what I can do if I want to, I can actually take this interior studs here. Oops. Let me come over here. I'm doing this wrong. And I can bring it over into my estimate. Now let's change this so that we're looking at the same assembly here. And all I did was move it into another estimate here. So let's look at it by combined assemblies. And that's what these interior studs are. So you can see I've got the same number over here. So if I want to make a change in here, I can actually go in and make some changes in the quantity or things here, or we can actually come over here and go into our details. I can actually go to edit my, oh, these are combined, so I need to go to my assembly. I can go in here and I can actually review this here in my mode. And I can say, well, we're going to make a change here. So there's a change order on this. And let's say that the height of framing in this particular case, the change order is going to 10 feet. And it's going to go to 24 inches on center. And we're changing the stud gauge to 26. So you make some changes here on what you want to do, all the changes, and then there's actually going to add a door, so it's going to be 21 doors. and the height of the drywall is going to go to 9 feet, and the height of finish is going to go to 9 feet. So we made some changes as it relates to that change order, and I'm going to go ahead and replace this. So all of a sudden now, here is that same assembly that's going to change for this one over here. Now, if I go to this assembly over here, and we take a look at this, let's go ahead and change this to assembly mode. Oops. Expand this out. So here's that same assembly that we did, and there's the change that we did here. If I wanted to, we can actually review this one. Well, I can't do these at the same time, but there's the change that we made on that slab for that change order for the different things. And then one over here, if I do this over here, we scroll this up so we can see that here. We take a look at it by assembly. Oh, come on here. Oh, it's not working right. But I can see that same assembly. Oh, here we are. We've got it. So I can see the same assembly here, and we can actually see what's different on this. Now, what's coming, one thing that's going to change here, I will say in the next release here, next spring, is I will be able to have this window open here, because you can see what our change was here, and I'll be able to have this window open here at the same time. Right now, it won't let me do that. I can only have one or the other. So the original was 35,619. Let's go ahead and keep that one. And the revised one that we did here with the change is 4242 for the change order. Now, if I wanted to, we could also add a column in here and call it change orders and name it as a change order by adding a WBS code and have all the items that are as is, and then the change order one, so we can isolate those. There's about 3 or 4 different ways I can merge this back into my estimate and have it replace this. There's a lot of different things that we can do to handle a change order. If it's a change order that isn't something that changed, but something that they've changed, they've added, you know, like added a wall or something like that, we can actually do that also, where I can go over and add a wall, call it my change order, and take care of it that way, and it'll be an added item on here that we can label as change order, then sort our estimate by change orders, and those that are not changed will be all grouped, and then those change orders that are separate will show each one individually. We can do the same thing with alternates too, so that's one way. Hopefully that explains it. And I wasn't too complicated on that. It's really not that hard at all, but there's a half a dozen ways to deal with change orders. And then when I send this back over, if I have it as a separate estimate, if I keep it as a separate estimate, I can actually have this go to accounting, transfer this over as a change order. And it will go and reconcile in accounting as a change order, so you can track it as a separate change order. Hopefully that'll answer your question. Any other questions?
Great. Yeah. Steve also had a question. His question was more directed for a change order that is reducing items or scope. Does that get treated the same way, Mark?
It does get treated the same way. Instead of adding things, I'll be deleting things, because that's usually things that are taken away. We have the ability to, when I delete things off of my takeoff, when I go through and see the changes, it'll show the things that have been deleted, and then it'll keep track of those, and it'll delete them from my estimate, from my drawing, if I do it that way. Or if I do it here, I would actually take it over here, and if I needed to delete some items, we could actually delete items or reduce items specifically, which is more of a deductive change order than it is an added change order. Anything that you make a change to, whether you reduce it or quantity, we can do. So it really makes no difference there. Did I answer your question?
I believe you covered it. Steve, if you could just type in the question box if we covered your answer. I'm sorry, your question. I believe we did, though.
Okay. Also, Steve, if you want to, we could set up a separate time and we could go over more specific to what you're talking about, and we can go one-on-one on a webinar that Michael can set up, and we can actually do that with your stuff. If you have our product, we can do that. If you don't, then we can paint a scenario that you want to do, and we can actually take a little more time that we don't have here to go through the specifics so we can answer it to your satisfaction. But yeah, we've been dealing with change orders for quite a while, and it's been the things I'm showing you here have been in the product for quite some time. And we have lots of people. Change orders are very common nowadays. Change orders and alternates. You don't have a normal job if you don't have a bunch of change orders and alternates to deal with. So that's on the table, and Michael will give you some contact information at the end of the thing. Any other questions, Michael?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Steve is also typing in that he would love to set up a one-on-one. So we'll take care of that right after this webinar. If there are no other questions, that will conclude our presentation. So I just want to recap what we talked about. So we showed how we can handle those revisions in the takeoff or in our actual estimate through the spreadsheet and adjust our totals and spread variance through the estimate, so that way we are aligning with accounting and there are not too many headaches going back and forth. We also showed you how we can view the estimates side by side to make it a little more visually easy for you guys to make those changes and handle those revisions, make temporary changes as well, and how to track all of those changes through our audit trail tool. So again, not only seeing what has changed, but you're also seeing it's creating a pass when you back that out. So just as a reminder, next week we have two more. Again, the one on progressive estimating is Tuesday, a little bit later at 9:30 a.m. And then Thursday, back at 9 o'clock, we have a webinar on using models within Sage Estimating. So we will get an email with the registration link. Will be sent out either later today or tomorrow. So we'll get that over to you guys as soon as possible. Hope you can join us for that. And here's our contact information for me, Michael, and Rob, the director of our estimating products. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, but we will be reaching out to you as well. So with that, thanks again. Mark, thank you for a great presentation, and we hope to see you guys next week. Have a wonderful day.